Hello, my loves, and welcome to this week's episode of I Think I Need Therapy. If you haven't watched my last episode, this one is going to be highly related to that one. Last week, I talked about my sexual assault experiences and kind of just went through my whole story with them and what happened to me and everything like that. I did touch a little bit on what I was experiencing emotionally during those times, but this episode I wanted to go more into those kind of aftermath experiences from the assault and like kind of what my life looks like after being assaulted and everything like that, and just kind of like the PTSD I developed, the trauma responses, the therapy that I went through. I want to talk a lot about the type of therapy I have been doing and did all summer and stuff, because it's honestly so interesting and I didn't know about it before. And I think it could be helpful for someone who has experienced assault and isn't seeing anyone, like just learning about this type of therapy, or it's just really interesting to learn about. I mean, I'm biased though because I'm a psychology major, so I don't know if anyone else finds that interesting, but I do. Anyways, you do not have to watch my last episode. I know it can be very triggering for some people, and also it's just something that can be disturbing to even hear. So I'm not saying that anyone has to go listen to that one before this one. This one can also be triggering, but definitely less triggering than the last one. But just know that I'm always here for all of you. Take care of yourself first. So if this is something that it might be too much to listen to as well, you don't need to. You can exit out at any time you need to. Don't feel obligated to listen to the whole thing. Do what's best for you and what's right for you. So yeah. Anyways, getting into the episode, I want to start off with like the first few months after I realized that I was assaulted. It took me a little while to actually like acknowledge the fact that I had been assaulted. Like it just I didn't process it. My brain also just did not realize it. I didn't know until someone told me, and then a lot of things started becoming a lot clearer. So after I did finally realize and, kind of start to acknowledge the fact that what happened to me was sexual assault, I started going into like this very, very negative headspace, and it was just like I was not doing well for a while because of it. I think at first it was kind of just like a shock to hear and to like realize and to, start to kind of accept. I just remember I cried a lot for like 6 months. No, I cried a lot in the past year. If you didn't watch the last episode, the assault happened a year ago, and then my second account happened like happened like 7 months ago. So it all kind of happened within the past year. So within the past year, I have been crying a lot, and at first it was just like the realization. It was just like a lot, because assault is not something you ask for. I know society says like, oh, you were asking for it because you were wearing this, wearing that, or because you were saying this and you wanted to have sex, whatever, you were asking for it. It's so not true. It's never the victim's fault. Let me just say that right here, right now. It is never the victim's fault. It has nothing to do with our actions, our behaviors, what we're wearing, or anything like that. It's the perpetrator that chooses to do the action, not the victim. Like, okay, it is not our fault. And oftentimes as a sexual assault survivor, you blame yourself so much and think it's your fault. So that's kind of what happened to me. I was just at like shocked that like something like that could have happened to me, as I was saying, like, it's not something I asked for. It just, happened. And there was nothing I could do about it. Like, it just, they chose to do that to me, and I couldn't do anything about it. You could say anything you want to, of like, you could have just ran away, you could have, punched him in the face or something, or you could have just been more affirmative in what you were saying. You could have just not went over or not slept with the guy, whatever. You can say all of these things, but I couldn't. I did everything in that situation to keep myself safe. When you're in that situation, the reason why it's trauma, I actually just wrote a whole paper on this exact topic, so I have facts to bring in today. But the reason why sexual assaults are trauma is because you feel at such a risk for your own safety. And it's also like, trauma happens when you're being threatened. Your life is being threatened. And so when you're being assaulted, maybe you're not actually going to be killed. In some cases, like, yes, you definitely fucking could be. But in a lot of cases, probably you're not going to be killed. But still, like, they are doing harm to your body. They are doing harm to you. And it is a threat to your survival because you do not know what is going to happen. You're asking for someone to stop doing an action to you, and they deny that. They deny everything you're saying, and they go against you and continue doing something that you do not, physically to you, that you do not want them to do. And that is a threat. That is a threat, and you do not know what will happen next. You do not know what else they will deny, and you realize that they do not care about you and your safety and anything about you. They just are using you, basically. So you feel very threatened, and it is like a scary fucking experience because I'm telling you not to do something to me and you're just going to harm me. Okay. So for me, after it happened and like after I was acknowledging and stuff, I like started to go into this place where I was like, did I do something wrong? What did I do? Like, I went into a lot of self-blame and thought it was my fault, and thought of all of the things I should have done and could have done differently, but I didn't do, and that was just pinning everything on myself. We are kind of programmed to believe that we could have done things differently in a situation, like that we have control over everything, essentially. And in this case, I did not have control. There was nothing I could have done differently. I mean, like, yes, maybe I could have made different choices, but I could not have seen that coming. And a part of it was just blaming myself and thinking that I should have been able to like realize that could have happened and saw that threat in the first place. But I could not have seen that coming at all. I couldn't have, because you don't expect someone to rape you. Like, it's not something you wake up and are just like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna be assaulted today. Like, that's what's gonna happen today. No, like, you don't just decide for that to happen or like even let it happen. It just happens, and it is not your fault. So I went into that whole place of self-blame, and for months I was just like crying and thinking all these awful things about myself and how like I should have done a bunch of things differently. Like, all of those things that I mentioned about someone could make, like the comments someone can make about it and what I like could have done, are exactly what I was telling myself. I was saying to myself that I should have like been affirmative with him and told him like to stop and been like firm within it, because I didn't exactly say no and I didn't exactly say stop. And a lot of victims don't say those things. Some don't even say anything. Like, there's different ways to show non-consent, and it's not always like very like a forceful like no. I mean, I've done that in other assaults that I've experienced. I was very affirmative and it still happened. But yeah, I thought I should have done stuff differently, like said that, or I should have like physically like fought back and stuff, or I was saying to myself that I just let that happen. I just let him use me. I just let them do those things to me, that I should have never even gone there in the first place, yada, yada, yada. And I was thinking that it was just all my fault, that, you know, in the future, no one's ever going to see me as someone that they want to date. Like, I'm just seen as a body that people just use me all the time. And there was a lot of these negative beliefs, and I'll get more into those when I get into the therapy aspect. But for the first months after experiencing the assault, I was just in this really bad place, filled with shame and guilt and just crying all the time. And then it got to a point where I started like processing a little bit more and kind of like, you know, really realizing and acknowledging it, and I like accepting it a little bit more, like the fact that I was raped. And that's when I started having like more extreme PTSD symptoms. And I think that's when like the PTSD really developed, was after my second / third / I don't even know what number account. But, and by the way, when I say account, it just means like that's the sexual assault experience. I don't know why they call it account, but like that's just how I refer to it in therapy. And yeah, so that account, I started to develop the PTSD symptoms after that one, because before it was more just like this confusion, this self-blame, you know, and then that happened, and then everything just progressed, and like all of these symptoms heightened a lot. And then that's when the panic attacks started, and I started feeling so fucking disgusted with myself. Like, just, well, yeah, in a sense. I like used to have an eating disorder, and there was a time where I hated my body, but for the past years, I've come to this place where I am so just accepting of my body, and every time I look in the mirror, like, there's nothing bad that even crosses my mind about my body. And I'm at this place where like I just have a great relationship with my body. But after this happened, that relationship was kind of harmed, and I could not look in the mirror at myself without feeling so gross, because like I would just be reminded, fuck, I'm gonna cry. I would just be reminded of the assault, like seeing my naked body. I would just see myself as this object, and I would be disgusted and reminded that like that this is the body their hands were on, like this is the body that happened to. Like there was one vivid moment I remember, like I was just like kind of spiraling about it, and then I just remember like, I don't know, there's times before I have a panic attack and I just like start rocking, I think, to self-soothe. Like I start like rocking back and forth, and then I can't like do anything, and that was happening. And then I just remember like seeing myself in the mirror and then fully just breaking down, and I just like, I don't know how to describe it, but I just felt like I wanted to escape. Like it was so overwhelming. All of those feelings, all of the emotions during this whole experience were just so overwhelming, to the point where like I just like, I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to escape from everything so badly. Like it was just so painful and painfully overwhelming to experience. And so as it progressed, like I finally got a therapist who specialized in sexual assault trauma. Before that, I had just been in like therapy because I genuinely cannot survive without therapy. I could. I just don't like to not be in therapy because I'm so used to having weekly or bi-weekly sessions for like the past 5 years of my life. So I don't know how to function without a therapist. I was in that talk therapy, but it was not helping. Like she was giving me some like good advice, but it was mainly like, this is not getting to the root of my problem. Like I am suffering. You're not really helping. So then I got a trauma specialist, and she told me that I was experiencing PTSD. And I remember the moment so vividly of how it just like felt like this weight lifted off my shoulders when she told me that, because it was so validating. It was so incredibly validating. I even have a text that I sent to one of my good friends, like right after that session. I texted her and like told her immediately how my therapist just told me I had PTSD and how amazing I felt because of that. And it just made sense. All of the reactions I was having, all of like the things that I was like experiencing, and even like in the text that I had sent that same friend, like I would like send her paragraphs, like long paragraphs all the time about just like how I was in my head about it and all these things I was thinking about the whole situation and everything. And when she told me, my therapist told me I had PTSD, I was like, oh, like that makes sense why everything I said in those messages, like why I was saying it, and the panic attacks and like the hating my body and all of these things, like it just now makes sense. Then she like knew exactly how to treat it. And sometimes I'm not saying this works for everyone, like definitely not. For different people it is different, they experience it differently. I've actually looked at a lot of different studies that say sexual assault victims or survivors get diagnosed with PTSD, but then as time goes on they reassess them, and or no, not as time goes on, but they reassess them like 4 different times, and once they got to like the 4th time, majority of those people didn't actually have PTSD. So sometimes like maybe someone does not have PTSD, and there are like symptoms from rape that are different and like don't align specifically with the PTSD criteria, but there are, like the therapy I did was specific for sexual assault trauma, and there are therapies such as the one I did, and EMDR, processing, exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy can cover a lot of different things. It's not specific for sexual assault, but CPT, which is cognitive processing therapy, the one I have done, along with eye movement desensitization and exposure processing therapies, are specific to trauma. And so those are really helpful for those who do experience sexual assault, even if you don't meet the criteria for PTSD or anything like that. I'm not going to get too scientific with you because I was about to just go into a whole scientific rant. I won't do that. I'm sorry. I will save you. But I remember her telling me that, and then we started to go into the CPT. And so what it entailed was just very intense therapy, which meant I was literally doing homework every single day for 18 weeks. I was doing it 4 months. So for 4 weeks, I was just working on it, doing my therapy, homework every single day, meeting her with my therapist once a week, and literally living through the trauma every single day. And it was like, she told me in the first session before we started like the actual therapy, she was like, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I've heard this so many times with so many different things, like my acne, my eating disorder, all these different things. It's always like, it's gonna get worse before it even gets better. And I'm like, okay, sure, but it already feels like it's awful. Like, I feel like I've been through the worst. I hadn't. It got a lot worse. Yeah. But then it got a lot better. She was not lying. She knew what she's talking about. But I do remember when I first started the therapy, thinking that I shouldn't have even been working with her, that I hadn't really experienced like sexual assault. I was like, no, like it's not even that bad. Like it just was sex. Like I'm just overreacting kind of thing. Like she probably thinks I'm so, silly for coming to her because it's not that bad of an experience. She probably deals with like all these other patients who had such bad sexual assault experiences. Like mine's just like not bad enough to be seeing a therapist about this. And I had all these doubts, and it went along with like that self-blame and the thoughts about that it was my fault and that maybe it didn't really happen that way, because I did have when it was happening, when I was experiencing the assault, I dissociated both times. So there's a lot of details that I did not remember at all. And there was a lot of things that I thought happened, but I was like, I don't really know if that did happen. Maybe I'm just like making it out to be like a greater story than it is, so I can feel validated. And I was like just doubting myself and my story a lot. And I mean, because I dissociated, it did make it hard to like acknowledge that it was assault as well, because I don't remember like majority of what did happen. But I still kept to the therapy, and if you're someone who thinks that way, still go get help, still talk about it, because you will realize the more you talk about it with people that it was bad, and that trauma is trauma, period. It doesn't matter how the assault happened, who did it to you, where it happened, how many times it happened, etc. What you said, what they did. Assault is assault. It doesn't matter the extent. Same with any mental illness. Like, the way you experience it is valid. Like, everyone is different. Everyone's gonna have a different story. Everyone's gonna have a different experience. And you do not need to compare, because it is valid what happened to you and how you are experiencing it, and what you are going through is valid. Point blank, period. And if you are doubting yourself, if you're doubting your experience, please just talk to someone about it, talk it through, see a specialist, and maybe you'll come to realize and be able to validate yourself and realize that, you know what, your story is bad enough, I guess, and you do deserve to get the help you need, and you do deserve to be free from the weight of those experiences. You don't deserve to be carrying that around all the time. And maybe it seems like it's okay too, and that you're fine just carrying it around all the time, but it can get better, and it does get better. But let me get back to my story. I just need to put that message out there. But yeah, so when I started therapy, I was having all that self-doubt and whatnot, but I still stuck with it. And what she first had me do in I think it was like my second session, after like she decided to choose to do CPT with me, she had me write down the whole event. So I wrote down in my journal exactly what happened, went through the rape in detail, and also spoke about why I thought it happened. Let me tell you, it was not easy. It took me a while to write, and I kind of like dissociated while writing it, so I didn't have to like feel all the emotions it came with. But I want to bring out my journal for this part of the episode, because the whole time, oh my god, literally the whole time this was all happening, I was just thinking about how I needed to speak about it all on my podcast. That is how my brain works now. All I think about is the podcast and telling everyone everything about my life. Whenever someone says say something nobody knows about you, I'm like the biggest open book there is. Like, what secrets do I have? None. Literally, I don't really have any. But you know what? It is what it is. I kind of like it. It's how I'm living. Okay, so I literally was journaling the whole thing, because I was like, one day I do want to share this, and I want to be able to help people with my experience. So in my little journal input of why it happened and what happened, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is literally the starting line. To simply put it, because I'm stupid and kept going back to this guy who I knew was awful. It happened because I let it. I didn't do anything to make him stop, to actually stop, and maybe I didn't make it clear enough that I was done. It happened because I let it and didn't know any better. I let him do it. It's my fault, my fault, my fault. My fault for not leaving when I should have. My fault for not seeing it. A lot of stuff in that entry about that I let it happen. Like, I actually said the words, I let it happen so many times, and that it was my fault so many times. And you can see clearly how much I was blaming myself. And I had to read that every single day for a week. And then we went through it together, her and I. And this is when we came up with these things called stuck points. And so stuck points are basically beliefs you have about a variety of different things. There's 5 different categories. But there are all these like beliefs you have that are holding you back. They're kind of limiting beliefs. And so I'm going to go through mine. The 5 different categories are safety, trust, power and control, esteem, and intimacy. But then there's also ones just about the event in general and why it happened. So I'm just going to name off like a bunch of mine that we wrote down at the beginning and like throughout the 18 weeks, the 4 months. And so the ones around the event were, it happened because I'm stupid. I let him use me. It happened because I let it. I should have been more clear. I should have been more firm. I knew better than to go and see him. I should have pushed back. And then there's a few more. And then when I got into safety, I only had one. And with these different like categories, everyone has like a different number in each one. Mine were more like, I had more in the esteem and intimacy categories and like not a lot in the first 2. But it all depends, especially on like what you believed and how like your experiences before the assault happened, and like how you handled different things and different beliefs about yourself and all these things before the assault happens can influence like your beliefs afterwards. And yeah, these stuck points. But so my safety one was just that if I'm alone inside with a guy, then he will assault me or attempt to assault me sexually. And then for trust, I said I do not trust myself to choose the right guys. I cannot trust men. I cannot trust myself to make the right decisions for myself. Then when it went into power and control, they were, I can't set my own boundaries. I can't stand up for myself. People always take advantage of me. All guys won't respect my needs. Then for esteem, this is the one I had a lot more in. Same with intimacy, I had a lot. But esteem was that I'm stupid. I'm not smart enough. People will only use me for my body. I have to do what's best for the guy I'm with. Other people's needs are more important than my own. I'm easily manipulated. I'm too giving. What I do is not enough. Nobody wants me for me. They just want me for my body. I'm sharing so much personal stuff right now. Wow. I told you I'm such an open book. Yeah, okay. Intimacy, I said, guys will cheat. Guys will just use me. Guys only want to have sex with me, nothing else. People will manipulate me. I have to have sex to be liked. If I get close to someone, they can hurt me emotionally. If I'm alone in a room with a guy, he will expect to have sex. If I have sex with someone, it's all about their satisfaction and not about mine. These are a lot that often do show up in survivors of sexual assault, these kind of beliefs and these thoughts. And I know a lot of those are around, like, I'm pinning men out to be horrible people. And yes, that is kind of what my brain was thinking. I'm not saying that all men are bad, but my mind after this was that all men will be like this. And like, I went to stereotyping and I was afraid of like I wasn't really afraid of all men. Like, there were some men that I did feel fine around, but because I was so traumatized by the experience, and because it was a male who did it to me, I'm just was like, okay, all men are bad now, and like they are a threat to my safety now. And that's what trauma does. I'm not saying that this is true. I'm just saying that this is how my brain was and what the trauma did to me and my beliefs. And so a lot of those were about men in general and all men. And even like I remember being at work and being scared. Like, actually anywhere I was scared, especially like at work. I worked at a golf course, so there's a lot of fucking men there. And I just remember going into one of the buildings and I was all alone in it, or sometimes there would be like some golfers in there, and I just remember going downstairs and it was alone, and I was alone, and I would be just like scared and thinking in the back of my mind that a man can just come down and like rape me right now, or a man can just come down and know that I'm going down there and assault me. And every time I would go down there, I would think about that in the back of my mind, which is not normal. Like, it's actually not likely to even happen at all. We also do have cameras in there, but because I was so traumatized and had these beliefs around my safety and everything, I was always thinking about it, and I was always on edge about it too. And so I did them in that order, and I challenged every single one of those every single day. Not every single one of those every single day, but I challenged every single one of those each day over the whole 4 months with these different like worksheets and everything. And then I would go into session and I would tell her about them and everything. And honestly, it is crazy because I don't believe any of those anymore. Like, some of them still kind of linger, but when I tell you, like, I reprogrammed my brain with that therapy. And you could actually see it, because at the end of the whole like therapy and the whole process and everything, I had to write another journal entry about like what happened and like why it happened, same as the one I did when we first started. And okay, wait, let me find it. Okay, now let me tell you the first line of this impact statement. I say, I was raped and assaulted, and those actions were the fault of those men. I tried my best to protect myself, to stand up for myself, and to keep myself safe, but they did not seem to care. They chose to deny my words. They chose to take those actions. I am very proud of myself for continuously doing what was best for myself and speaking up even when scared. No one deserves that, but I know that not every man will be the same, and soon someone will show me what real kindness, respect, and care is, because it is possible and possible for me. That's actually all I wrote. I just read you the whole thing. I thought it was going to be more personal. I kind of forgot. But the difference in that mindset compared to the first time where I was just like, I let it happen. It's all my fault. Like, all these degrading things about myself. And then this one was just like, you know what? I'm actually proud of myself. I did what I had to in that situation to protect myself. Like, it's their fault, not mine. And that still like a hopeful message at the end of it. It's so bizarre how much like that therapy worked. So bizarre. And I am so grateful I found that therapist and reached out to her, because like those beliefs and those thoughts that I was living with then, like the way it was impacting me every single day was just like so awful. And especially because I got into a relationship during the summer, which I genuinely swore off men. I was like, I am not ever going to speak to a man ever again. I'm never going to have sex ever again, after like I had processed the assault and then somehow got into a relationship like right after that, because that's how the universe works. But I started seeing this guy, and it actually was very, very healing, and I think the universe had a reason for it, definitely, because it helped me a lot throughout that summer and throughout those 4 months of extreme healing, because it did, one, help me to realize how much I was traumatized And like it brought up a lot more stung points and made me like realize and have to face all of them, and also just like live through them as well. And like it was kind of having exposure therapy along with it, because I was literally like facing these stuck points of like all these beliefs that I have about men while being with a man. And he was also like, he did treat me with a lot of respect and kindness, and so that was like healing, to actually be treated in the way that my brain did not believe I was capable of being treated that way. And so I'm actually very grateful for that, because it helped me so much, and he helped healed me from those stuck points and those beliefs I had. And also, like I said, it brought up more and helped me to realize those, and actually just like have the resilience and get through them and work through those a lot more. I was actually filled with so much anxiety in the start of that relationship, and I remember just like freaking out all the time to my friends. I was like, all this bad stuff is gonna happen, yada yada yada. He actually doesn't like me. There's some like secret plan behind this. Like he's gonna manipulate me like I always have been. I don't know. He's like probably like cheating. Not that we were dating, but I was just like, he's gonna like be talking to all these other girls. He's not actually serious, blah blah blah. Not because of him. Like they had literally nothing to do with him. I don't think he would do that at all. Like I don't think he's the person to do that. But every experience I have had was those negative things. And so I could not comprehend that not happening. And all I believed was like that would happen, and was so afraid of that happening. And just all those trust issues were coming up, and so it forced me to work through them. And like the therapy really helped me like challenge those. And the trauma was just had me on edge all the time, and like just trying to like protect me and just be like, okay, like no, these things could happen, but like it was unrealistic. Like that's very likely not going to happen. So I was on this very like high anxiety, high survival mode for months, because the trauma was so traumatizing. And I mean, the panic attacks were still happening. I remember fully like, oh gosh, I remember some nights like I had trouble sleeping a lot, because like I said, the emotions were extremely overwhelming. And I remember one night I literally had to put on some kids show because I could not stand the thoughts in my head. Like it was awful. I was just so fearful all of the time, especially like being in that relationship, just fearful that I was going to be hurt. And so emotionally, physically, all of the above, just hurt. And that these things would happen to me again. And also just like feeling the pain of knowing that I was raped. Like I changed also from feeling guilty and ashamed to feeling a lot of anger and frustration and sadness, which is so normal. Like if you are feeling those things, I'm not saying that was bad, but if you're feeling those things, those are natural emotions that are so fucking reasonable to be felt after being assaulted. Like it is so frustrating, and I still get angry a lot when I do think about it, or I get sad, because like to think that someone did that to me and to think that that happens actually like pisses me off. Like it makes me angry. And I remember feeling like overwhelmed with that sadness and overwhelmed with just a lot of emotions one night, and like I fully broke out into a panic attack, and then somehow was able to calm myself down. But then just like I was so afraid of thinking the thoughts in my head and thinking about like the future and how I could be hurt and all these things that could happen, and just like it was so overwhelming and it's so painful. I don't even know how to describe it. That's the only way I can describe it. And because of that, like I had the panic attack, and then I also would like fully just like dissociate. And I don't even know if it is dissociation. I don't know what it is, but I think it is dissociation, because I like my whole body like kind of went stiff, I remember just like not being able to move, and when I did move, it was very, very slowly. And it sounds like maybe I'm over exaggerating, or I was just like being so dramatic in the moment, but genuinely my body just like went into this like, I don't even know, survival mode type thing, where I just could not move and dissociated from every thought in my brain, and like could not do anything, because that's how fucking afraid I was, and that's how much I had to avoid thinking the thoughts in my brain and feeling those emotions and everything like that. Like I could not. I guess I'm just trying to emphasize how overwhelming and how just heavy of a weight the event had on me, and the emotions that I was experiencing were. And so, anyways, having worked through all of that, I finally, like now, I'm at a place of peace, and challenging all of those beliefs really, really helped me to not go through those extreme emotions as much. And also, like, I think because I was avoiding it so much, that's why I was having those extreme reactions, and that's why I was so just like terrified all the time. And so going through having to read like my impact statements over and over again, and also like literally working on it every single day for months and just talking about it constantly helped me to like just like get rid of that avoidance. Like I was not avoiding it anymore. I was accepting what happened, accepting the fact that it happened, and really acknowledging it finally. And so now clearly it is something I can just talk about. It's not so heavy anymore, and it's not something that triggers me or impacts me so greatly to talk about or think about and to even hear about. So living through that and facing it and facing the trauma every single day and getting rid of the avoidance has helped me so much. And I say all of this just to show you that like it is possible to come to the other side where these things aren't triggering anymore, and that is what people who experience sexual assault do go through, and that is what it is like. And for everyone it is different, but a lot of times those kind of thoughts do occur. And if you are someone who's experiencing that, I want to send you all of my love, and I just want to say that I'm sorry. Like I'm so fucking sorry that happened to you. There's nothing that it can excuse their behavior. There's nothing that you did wrong. Okay, it was all of them. It was all them. It has nothing to do with you and who you are, your worth, anything, period. It has nothing to do with you. And I want you to know that you are deserving of care, and you deserve to be free from the weight of that event. You deserve to not have to walk every single day with that on your shoulders, because you did not choose for that to happen to you. That happened to you, okay? It did. But it does not need to define you for the rest of your life. And it does not need to impact you so greatly for the rest of your life. It does not need to, and it doesn't have to. I hope from my story you can see that there is hope, and that even from these things happening, you still can work through it. And even if I like believed those things, those stuck points wholeheartedly, like I 100% believed them, and I've gotten to a point where I do not believe them anymore. So I want you to know that that is possible. You did not deserve that, my love. You did not. But to all of you survivors, I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for fighting another day. And I'm sorry you have to carry that weight with you every single day. And it sucks that this is the reality of the world, but it is. And you are so resilient for getting through that. So no matter what did happen to you and who you are still valuable, you're still lovable, and you're still worthy of a great life and a great future filled with respect and love and enjoyment. So yeah, that was my whole message and what my life has been like after being assaulted. And I thank you all so much for listening. If you've gotten to this point, thank you so much. I appreciate and love every single one of you. If you listen to my last episode, thank you. It is not something that is very easy to share, but I have seen how much it is touching people, and that is what I'm doing it for. And I'm so grateful that I can have this platform to do that. So yes, I send you all so much love and light today and always, and I thank you for being here. Know that you can always reach out to me. I'm always here for every single one of you, and I will talk to you all again next Tuesday. Okay, bye my loves. Bum ba ba bum ba bum 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 ba. Yeah. I think I need to stop doing that because I actually can't sing for the fucking life of me. That sounds probably awful. Okay, bye.